Am I in focus? Okay. Hello. In this video, I'm going to show you the process of how I work on a children's book. This book I've mentioned already in my past video is basically written by a little boy. I think he's around 8 years old. It's for a client that is a community center in the UK, and they have this writing competition for children, and the kid whose story gets chosen has their story like illustrated. I've been illustrating all the books so far that they've been doing for this project, and this is the third one I'm doing for them. The book is called The Boy Who Saved the World. It's a super cute story. I wanted to do something a bit different with this one because I've been illustrating digitally for the last many years, and I kind of wanted to challenge myself and try to do it on paper traditionally using like watercolors and pencils. But because I'm a bit rusty, the first thing I decided to do was to just figure out kind of what style I wanted to go for, because when it comes to children's books, I'm still kind of figuring out my style. I would love to have like a really distinct, unique style, and I would love it to be inspired by the kind of children's books that I love. Picture books that I love the most and that inspire me the most are usually the ones from like the 50s and 60s. I just think for me that's like the best era for a children's book and quite possibly for illustration in general. I love how like bold and kind of simple it is. I feel like a lot of the shapes are just really simple and really expressive. Obviously, all of those illustrations were done by painting them by hand. So, you know, if I want to kind of emulate that style or be inspired by that style, then I have to use the same techniques that they are using. The first thing I did for this project was to just have a bit of a playful time in my sketchbook and have fun with it in the beginning. And I decided to do this before I even did the thumbnails for the book or like started sketching out the book itself, just because I felt like I needed to rediscover the joy of painting and just have fun with it. And I felt like if I set myself into the right mindset for this project, then it will help me. My main real inspiration was an illustrator called Miroslav Šašek. He was a Czech illustrator in the 50s and 60s. He just has such a gorgeous, beautiful style. I love the way he draws faces. I kind of borrowed a little bit from him, but I also included some of my own ideas for like different kinds of faces I could draw for this book. The first thing I did was to draw just some profiles, faces and heads of like different kinds of characters, and I just wanted to make them as diverse as possible. So here I'm just designing different faces, and I thought, you know, some of them could probably work as like background characters for some of the scenes. And yeah, I was just making these with watercolor. I have a really funny way of painting with watercolors. I basically use them in a very thick, flat way, the same way you would use acrylics or gouache. I don't know why I do this. I'm not a watercolor artist. I just like how convenient watercolors are. They're just so tiny and I don't have to make a big mess when I'm painting, and I just find them really quick and easy to use. So yeah, I was using watercolors, and then for the eyes of the character, the watercolor that is white that I have is not like thick enough, so I was just using acrylic white paint to make the eyeballs of the characters. So once I was done with that, I scanned everything, and then I went into my iPad and I opened the file in Procreate, and I decided that I wanted to clean them up a bit, because I did have some little mistakes here and there that I didn't really like how it looked. So in some cases I would just draw on top of the scanned image and kind of correct some of the stuff. Like sometimes I wouldn't really like the skin tone that I gave one of the characters, or sometimes it would just look a bit messy in some places. So yeah, I just began by cleaning up the page and going around the outlines of each character and cleaning that up. And once I was done with that, I started doing these little corrections to each character and maybe drawing over and making some of the details sharper. And then I just rearranged them on the page a little bit better. You can see me redrawing the eyes on all of the characters. I really didn't do a good job of painting the eyes. They were always coming out really messy, and I wanted like a clean look. It's a bit of a tedious, let's say, manual process, but actually I really enjoy doing it, so I didn't really mind doing this. It could be a problem later on when I'm running out of time on this project and I have all the finished painted pages, but now I have to scan each individual one and clean it up and draw over some of my mistakes. I think that will take quite some time, and it will be at the very end of the project, which will be quite stressful. But it is what it is. Just looks so fluffy.
Oh, so luxury. Like painting somebody.
Yeah.
There.
This tree has a face. You see it? And it's also got a big pimple.
He's eating slugs and you just gave him an apple. He's like,
Oh, I'm trying to turn him vegan.
baby.
On the day that I was painting these ones, I decided to go outside and just brave the weather. I thought it was gonna be warmer. It was quite cold, but I still enjoyed it. There's just something really special about being able to paint and draw outside, because when I'm drawing on my tablet, I rarely do it, just because even when I turn the brightness on to 100% on my tablet, I still can barely see, especially if it's like sunny outside. So yeah, on that day I just managed to do maybe like an hour or two of painting outside, which was really nice. And then I had to wrap it up and move back inside because it was starting to get really cold and I was freezing. I switched over to this watercolor sketchbook that I have, which in real life it looks really nice. It has a nice texture, but then when I scanned it, I really didn't like these lines. So you can see in these three women that I sketched and then I painted I didn't really like the texture. I decided to use the other side of that paper, which is still really good for mixed media artwork, but it has less of a texture. I had drawn these women, and again, I had this idea in mind that they would be like background characters or some just practice, really, just practicing the style that I want to go for. So after this, I cut out a piece of paper that would be my template and that would fit my scanner. So I made it as big as my scanner would allow me because I knew I didn't want to photograph these artworks. That was my template for one page of the book. This is what it would look like. Now that I had done all this exploration and kind of concept art and figuring out what the style would be and what the characters will look like, I decided to go ahead and jump into the thumbnailing of the book. So this is the part where you usually start a book with. So the very first thing that I did was to create a Canva document with the exact size of my piece of paper that I had, and then double that to create like a double page. Go to File, and then to Settings, and then click on Show Print Bleed. And this is just to give me an idea of where the image might get cut off in the process of printing and to not put any important information or text too close to the edge of the page. Then I click on Add Guides and I click on Columns and I say give me 2 columns with 0 space in between them, and that creates like a perfect line in the middle of this document, and basically that's where the book is bound in the middle. And then I just started populating each page with the text. And I guess the nice thing about this project is that I get to play art director and designer as well, because I'm the only person working on this book. So in terms of like where the text will be on each page, I get to decide that. Just populate every page with the lines of text. I decided to go ahead and jump into the thumbnailing of the book. So this is the part where you usually start a book with. You just go through the text. You figure out what is the action, what's happening. It's basically like a storyboard. I prefer to call it a storyboard in my mind just because it's easier. Here, for example, is the very first page. On the first page, we have our first bit of text that says, Michael woke up early, his body tingling with excitement. His father, a well-known scientist, was taking him to the laboratory for the first time. So I just wanted to, figure out the placement of the text and the placement of the bed, and I knew I wanted like a window with like a sun, and I knew I wanted a lot of toys and books and details that would kind of like communicate something to us about the main character, like who he is, what his interests are. Because like the bedroom is a very private place that can say a lot about a person, especially when you're a kid, I feel. And then I just continued doing that. The next page was a scene in a laboratory, and I knew I wanted that to be really interesting, and having all of this laboratory equipment, like I thought that was really exciting. But at this point, I also wasn't really going into details. I was just kind of like really roughly sketching out what's happening and what my ideas were. And this is a really fun part of the process because it's for the first time you're actually trying to imagine it visually. You're seeing the story for the first time.